The house was still that autumn, a stillness that penetrates your very being and draws attention to each subtle creak of the floorboards. At the age of 48, I found myself residing in a vast suburban house alongside my husband, Mark, and his son from a previous marriage, Ethan. At 19, Ethan found himself a sophomore in college, back home for the semester due to a mix-up with his dorm arrangements. My life had found its groove, mornings filled with coffee and emails, afternoons dedicated to managing the household, and evenings spent navigating the delicate balance between stepmother and wife. Mark frequently disappeared, his role as a consultant taking him away, leaving Ethan and me to maneuver through the delicate balance of closeness and separation. However, that autumn, a change occurred, beginning with a straightforward plea, "Could you assist me with my homework?" Ethan lounged on the living room couch, his laptop perched on his knees, textbooks strewn about like remnants of a fierce battle. He was delving into literature, a field I had always cherished, and I had volunteered to assist when he expressed difficulty with an essay. Initially, it seemed insignificant, a mere opportunity to forge a connection, to transcend the role of just being the woman his father chose. I found myself sitting next to him, the aroma of his cologne, fresh and subtly earthy, taking me by surprise. He possessed a striking allure that had previously escaped my attention, characterized by defined cheekbones and eyes that conveyed a subtle yet profound depth. I pushed the thought away, concentrating on the essay prompt, yet there was an electric tension in the atmosphere, a delicate change that sent a shiver across my skin. For hours, we immersed ourselves in his laptop, analyzing themes and shaping arguments with precision. The dialogue unfolded effortlessly, his sharp humor catching me off guard, his enthusiasm for the topic drawing me closer. I caught myself chuckling, leaning in, my hand lightly grazing his as I indicated a line on the screen. The contact hung in the air, a heartbeat too long, sending a jolt through me, akin to static electricity, causing my breath to hitch. Ethan remained close. Instead, he fixed his gaze on me, unwavering and probing, and for a fleeting moment, the room seemed to shrink, the air thickening with warmth. I cleared my throat, mustering a smile, and guided us back to the essay, yet the moment lingered between us, unvoiced but unmistakable. With each passing day, those study sessions evolved into a cherished routine. Ethan planned to wait until evening, when the house belonged to us, and we'd nestle in the living room, the light from the laptop creating shadows that danced on the walls. The task was straightforward, examining verses, creating frameworks, but beneath it all, there was a subtle intensity, a strain that intensified with each exchanged look, each unintentional brush of hands. I reassured myself it was merely a stepmother and stepson connecting through literature. Yet, I was acutely aware of the way his gaze held on me when he believed I was oblivious, and how my heart raced when he leaned in to reveal a passage. I found myself engaged in a perilous endeavor, fully aware of the risks involved. On a Thursday night, the air was sharp with the hint of autumn, and that's when events began to shift. Mark was away in Denver, not expected back for days, and the house seemed expansive, desolate. Ethan grappled with a particularly challenging analysis, his frustration evident as he raked a hand through his dark hair. "I'll never figure this out," he grumbled, flinging his pen onto the coffee table. I extended my hand, gently placing it on his arm, a gesture intended to provide solace. "You will," I murmured gently. "You're smarter than you think." His gaze locked onto mine, and once more, I felt that familiar intensity, raw and unfiltered, causing my heart to skip a beat. The stillness lingered, thick with potential. I ought to have stepped back, shifted the conversation, anything to disrupt the enchantment. However, I chose not to. My hand lingered on his arm, fingers grazing the warmth of his skin, and I sensed the shift, the instant when boundaries faded. "You stand apart," he remarked unexpectedly, his tone soft, nearly a murmur. "Not like anyone else I know." The words struck me like a spark, awakening something I had been attempting to overlook. I chuckled, attempting to divert the moment, yet my voice trembled. "Watch out, Ethan." He remained silent. He drew nearer, his face just inches from mine, his breath a warm whisper against my cheek. I truly mean it, Laura, he said, my name taking on a new resonance in his voice, personal in a manner that felt entirely out of place. My heart raced, a chaotic beat that overwhelmed the urgent voice urging me to halt. I can't recall who initiated it, perhaps it was him, or perhaps it was me, but in an instant, his lips found mine, gentle yet insistent, a kiss imbued with a sense of daring and unspoken desire. My hands gripped his shoulders, drawing him nearer, and for an instant, I surrendered to the sensation, the warmth of his lips, the weight of his form, the thrill of stepping over a boundary that was forever altered. It ended just as swiftly as it started. I stepped away, my breath uneven, my thoughts swirling with the weight of our actions. Ethan's eyes were wide, a blend of astonishment and longing, his chest heaving as if he had just sprinted a mile. Laura, he began, but I quickly shook my head, rising suddenly, my hands quivering. We cannot, I replied, my voice trembling slightly. This was a mistake. Yet, as the words escaped my lips, I sensed the deception woven into my statement, a hidden part of me yearning for it not to be a mistake at all. He approached, his voice a hushed whisper filled with intensity. Laura, I implore you. Please, don't say that. I stepped back, my hands lifted as though to fend off the reality before me. Ethan, this isn't right. You are my stepson. Mark trusts us. The words hung in the air, each one a weighty reminder of the gravity of the situation. Yet, as I uttered those words, my body revealed its secrets, still alive with the sensation of his touch, my lips aflaze with the recollection of his kiss. I averted my gaze, fixating on the disarray of textbooks strewn across the coffee table, seeking to ground myself in the present moment. This must remain a secret, I murmured, my voice just a breath above silence. Never. He nodded, his jaw clenched, yet his gaze remained fixed on me, probing, imploring. I won't tell anyone, he vowed, his voice heavy with feeling. But Laura. I don't regret it. Those words struck me with the force of a blow, leaving me breathless. I longed to shout, to demand he retract his words, yet a hidden part of me, one I feared to confront, shared that very sentiment. The atmosphere was stifling, the confines tightening around me, and I yearned for freedom. Go to bed, Ethan, I said, my voice carrying an edge I hadn't meant to convey. Let's act as if this moment never occurred. He paused for a moment, then seized his laptop and books, his actions rigid, as if he were compelling himself to act. As he vanished up the stairs, a heavy silence enveloped me like a dark cloak. I collapsed onto the couch, my hands shaking, the burden of our actions heavy on my heart. Mark's face appeared vividly in my thoughts, his gentle eyes, his unwavering presence, and guilt gripped me, fierce and unyielding. Yet underneath it all, there lingered something more, something perilous, the exhilaration of that kiss, the manner in which it had stirred a fragment of me I thought was long forgotten. I found myself at the precipice, where a single misstep could lead to a catastrophic fall. What have I done? And even more troubling, what was my next move? The following morning, the house was charged with tension, each corner echoing the lingering memory of that kiss. I rose with the dawn, my mind throbbing from a restless night, my emotions a chaotic mix of remorse and desire. Ethan's words, I don't regret it, resonated in my thoughts, a haunting melody I couldn't drown out. I steered clear of the living room, opting for the kitchen instead, where I immersed myself in coffee and dishes, anything to keep my hands engaged and my thoughts occupied. Yet the reality was undeniable. I had overstepped with Ethan, and no amount of cleaning could wash it away. Mark remained in Denver, his absence a complicated blessing, affording me the solitude to reflect, yet also isolating me with the very individual I sought to evade. Ethan showed up around noon, his hair disheveled and his demeanor cautious. Morning, he murmured, reaching for a mug from the cabinet. I felt a surge of tension, my fingers clenching around the sponge I held. Morning, I responded, my tone sharp, aiming to establish a clear boundary through my words. Yet the atmosphere surrounding us was electric, laden with the unspoken words that lingered in the silence. He poured coffee, his movements measured and intentional, and I found myself observing him, the way his shoulders shifted beneath his t-shirt, the line of his jaw. I averted my gaze, heat flooding my cheeks, frustrated by my body's defiance of my thoughts. Initially, it was a topic we avoided. Instead, we slipped back into the familiar rhythm of homework, as if feigning that nothing had shifted could somehow render it real. I positioned myself at the dining table, maintaining a comfortable distance, my laptop displaying his most recent essay draft. Yet each word seemed like a performance, each look a gamble. His foot grazed mine beneath the table, and I recoiled, retreating as though scorched. "Apologies," he uttered swiftly, yet his gaze remained locked on mine, probing, and I recognized it, the identical yearning I was battling against. I took a moment to gather my thoughts, directing my attention to the screen before me. "Let's just push through this," I said, my tone more cutting than I intended. Yet the tension intensified, a vibrant entity that throbbed in the space between us. As we collaborated, his voice grew gentler, his remarks infused with a familiarity that seemed almost intimate. "You have a way of clarifying everything," he said, his tone filled with admiration. "I can't imagine navigating this without you." I managed a smile, my heart pounding. "You'd figure it out," I said, though the words seemed to lack substance. His gaze held me captive, and I sensed the familiar tug once more, that perilous force beckoning me nearer despite the alarms ringing in my mind. The late afternoon was when everything began to fall apart. We had shifted to the couch, the essay almost complete, when Ethan shut his laptop and faced me. "Laura," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "we need to discuss what happened last night." My stomach sank, the atmosphere in the room thickening. "There's nothing to discuss," I declared, rising, eager to flee. Yet he moved quicker, positioning himself before me, his gaze burning with fervor. "Please don't do that," he urged, his voice strained. "Don't pretend it was insignificant." I stood still, my breath barely escaping, ensnared by the reality of his words. "Ethan, please," I murmured, my voice trembling. "This is unacceptable. It's wrong." Yet, even as the words left my lips, my body betrayed me, leaning in closer, compelled by an irresistible pull. He moved nearer, his fingers grazing my arm, and that contact sparked a surge of energy, rekindling the flames from the previous night. "Is it so?" he inquired, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper. "It simply doesn't feel incorrect to me." I ought to have turned on my heel, shut the door behind me, reached out to Mark, anything to put an end to this. However, I chose not to. My hand sought his, fingers weaving together, as the world faded to the warmth of his skin and the rhythm of my heartbeat. He drew me nearer, his lips meeting mine, and this kiss was unlike any other, more profound, more passionate, a yielding to the desire we had both been resisting. My hands explored the contours of his back, while his fingers wove through my hair, and for a fleeting moment, I surrendered, allowing the world to fade away. But then I caught it, the subtle vibration of my phone resting on the coffee table. I recoiled, breathless, as the weight of reality surged in like an unstoppable tide. The screen illuminated with Mark's name, a video call, and a wave of panic washed over me. "Oh my God," I murmured, retreating from Ethan, my hands trembling as I reached for the phone. "It's your dad." Ethan's eyes grew wide, his breath coming in quick gasps, and he nodded, retreating, his expression a blend of guilt and trepidation. I picked up the call, mustering a smile as Mark's face appeared on the screen. "Hey, darling," he said, his voice rich with warmth, completely unaware. "Just checking in." I nodded, my voice wavering as I engaged in trivial conversation, discussing the weather, dinner plans, while Ethan stood in the background, quiet, his presence a palpable burden I couldn't shake off. As the call concluded, I faced him, my voice quivering. "This must come to an end, Ethan. Now." He nodded, yet his eyes were shadowed, filled with inner turmoil, and I sensed he was just as conflicted as I was. As he ascended the stairs, I collapsed onto the couch, my hands quivering. Mark's call had been a beacon, a stark reminder of the life I was jeopardizing. Yet, the recollection of Ethan's kiss remained, a toxin coursing through my veins, and I found myself questioning my ability to withstand it. The house fell into silence once more, yet a tempest brewed within me, fierce and unrelenting. I found myself at a loss, unsure of how to quell it, or if I truly desired to. Mark's call unsettled me, a vivid reminder of the life I was igniting with each impulsive choice. I settled onto the couch, my hands quivering, the memory of Ethan's kiss igniting within me like an intense fever. The house was still, yet it pulsed with an undercurrent of peril, each shadow concealing the mystery we had woven. Mark's arrival was just 2 days away, hanging over me like a dark cloud, and I needed to figure out how to conceal this before it unraveled everything. Yet, the reality was, I found myself uncertain about my ability to do so. Ethan's aura drew me in, a powerful force that captivated me, even as the weight of guilt threatened to unravel me. I found myself overwhelmed by my own longings, unsure of how to navigate my way back to safety. The following day felt like an endless ordeal. I did my utmost to steer clear of Ethan, retreating to my office and immersing myself in tasks that were beyond my comprehension. Yet the dwelling felt cramped, his aura overwhelming. I could hear him moving downstairs, the clink of dishes, the gentle hum of music, and my heart would race, caught in a struggle between fear and desire. As the evening approached, I found it impossible to conceal any longer. Ethan sat in the living room, textbooks scattered around him, his face a mask of contemplation. "Laura," he murmured as I walked past, his tone soft, "could we collaborate on the essay? It's due tomorrow." I paused, aware that it was a snare, not his, but my own. "Fine," I replied, my tone strained, positioning myself as far from him on the couch as possible. Initially, we toiled in quietude, the atmosphere heavy with things left unsaid. His fingers danced over the keyboard, and I observed them, resenting how my thoughts drifted to the sensation of them against my skin. "You seem a bit reserved this evening," he remarked at last, his voice measured and inquisitive. I gulped, my throat constricted. "Just tired," I fibbed, yet my voice gave me away, trembling under the burden of all the unsaid words. He halted, his gaze locking onto mine, and I perceived it, the identical struggle, the same yearning. "Laura," he began, but I interrupted him. "Don't," I said, my tone cutting through the air. We decided to act as if it never occurred. Yet, feigning was out of the question. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, winding itself more tightly with each passing moment. As he reached for a book, his hand grazed mine, and I felt a jolt of electricity that left me momentarily paralyzed. "I'm trying," he said, his voice trembling, "but I can't stop thinking about you." The words broke through my barriers, and I felt myself losing grip, the precipice beneath me eroding. "Ethan, please," I whispered, my voice fragile, imploring both him and my own heart. He leaned in, his breath brushing my cheek, and I sensed the magnetic pull, the weight of him, more intense than before. This time, I surrendered. Our lips collided, a blend of longing and yielding, the kiss more profound, more untamed than ever. We intertwined, a blend of desire, the surroundings blurring until it was just us, his warmth enveloping me, the flavor of his kiss lingering. It was chaos, a dive into the unknown, and I felt no concern. Suddenly, a sound broke through the fog, the creak of the front door. My heart froze, and I recoiled, my breath quickening, dread surging through my body. "Someone's here," I breathed, leaping to my feet, my fingers brushing through my hair, adjusting my outfit. Ethan stood still, his gaze filled with terror, reflecting my own emotions. "Laura," he murmured, his voice strained, "who is it?" With urgency, I approached the window, glancing through the slats, and a wave of dread washed over me. There she was, Mrs. Carter, the ever-curious neighbor from next door, her flashlight casting beams across the porch. "It's just Mrs. Carter," I said, my voice quivering, likely just checking her mail. Yet, the fear pierced through me like a cold blade, a stark reminder of how narrowly we had escaped being discovered. I glanced at Ethan, my voice trembling. "This concludes here. No more." He nodded, his complexion drained, yet his eyes were deep and conflicted. I'm sorry, he uttered, his voice trembling. I never intended for this to unfold. I wished to trust him, to trust my own feelings, yet the reality was inescapable. I had desired it as well. As he ascended the stairs, I collapsed onto the floor, my hands shielding my face. Mrs. Carter's flashlight beam hovered, an unspoken challenge, and I sensed the secret was on the brink of revelation. What transpired afterward? Did Mrs. Carter catch a glimpse of us? Did I reveal my feelings to Mark, or did I hide the truth away for good? The tempest I had summoned continued to roar, and I found myself ensnared within its eye, with no escape in sight. Some secrets obliterate all, others remain hidden, poised to unleash their impact. Those moments with Ethan transformed me, and I'm still navigating the aftermath. Perhaps someday, I will discover tranquility. At this moment, I'm merely attempting to navigate the chaos I've caused.